Godt. Hvis du er på F1, har du ikke noget lyd. Nu. Jo. Lyd her. Yep. Du har ikke noget slide? you need to not set a strict DMARC policy until you're ready. So, why does this matter? Well, it matters because this is the way to increase deliverability. When you're sending email, especially if you're sending mass email to your list, you're most likely promoting something or creating awareness for cause or whatever you're doing. You want people to actually get these emails. I hear a lot of people say, yeah, well, emails are dead. Nobody reads email anymore. That's not true. Emails are not dead, and it's the most direct way to get people's attention. Once they have signed up to your list, you have this direct connection into their inbox, as opposed to Facebook ads or Instagram this or Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever else you're trying to reach them. If you can get into their mailbox, that's a super powerful tool. But that requires that you're actually getting your mails delivered. So, another thing about this is when you set up DMARC, you can actually monitor where you're sending your emails from. It's been quite an aha experience to set up DMARC monitoring tools, because you see that some domains are like sending from a gazillion services. I have customers with like 10 different places they're sending emails from. All legit, but it's super hard to get them all to verify. And then finally, when you're able to actually up your DMARC policy, then you can use it to prevent spam being sent from your domain. So, the interesting bit here, I've taken one of my customers. I use a service called Postmark. They have a free service where you can send up, when you set up a DMARC record, part of the DMARC record is a return path for all the messages. When you send an email to Gmail or whatever, and you have set up a DMARC policy, if the verification check in the DMARC, if it fails, there will be sent a return email. Don't ever just set these to, unless you're really geeky, more than me, don't set these to your own email account. Use some service to collect them, because it's a lot of nonsense and it doesn't really give you an overview. But there are tools out there. Dennis demonstrated the one from DMARCian, and I'm using the one from Postmark. There's also paid tools when you need to upgrade. But I'm using this one, and it gives me this nice weekly overview where I can see, well, I have some, here's like 3,300 emails processed that week, and 97% were either SPF or DKIM aligned, and 3% were none of these. And then I get some details further down. I can see who is sending, and this one, rsgsv.net, I have looked that up. I know that's MailChimp. That's one of many MailChimp domains that they're using to send their emails. So that's MailChimp. And you can see the DKIM is aligning because MailChimp takes care of that themselves. But the SPF doesn't, and that's because the sender both says it's from in various levels in the email. You both have the sender domain, the actual email address sending this one, and then you have the MailChimp domain. And when these ones aren't the same, you get an error. So that would actually mean if they had an active DMARC policy with quarantine or reject, the mails would not reach their target. And they have like, this is from the same domain, the same mail address, and there was like 5 or 6 IPs in all of these, but you can see they're like using a lot of different MailChimp domains, and then they even have at the bottom, they had set up, they had some deliverability issues, no wonder, and then they sent up their own account at SendGrid to send their mails. But something is definitely wrong there as well, because neither DKIM or SPF is aligning. So these mails, if they had an active policy would never reach their target. Now they might or they might not. But this is like the overview you get, and you can use this. I'll come back to how to set this up, but one of the things I recommend doing if you don't know where to start is to actually just start by setting up a DMARC record. Set the policy to none, and then use one of these services to monitor what is actually going on with your email domain. Because then you can gather some intelligence and you can say, oh, I need to this service and that service and this service. Oh, am I using this service? I don't know. It'll give you a really nice overview. This is my own email. And you can see I'm like 99 green and 1% red. And that 1%, that triggered my attention because I was a bit like, usually this goes better. So I'm sending all my emails from Semplero, and I have SPF alignment, DKIM alignment, no problem. They actually figured out how to get that to work quite easily. So then I scroll down, then I use Webinar Jam for my webinars. I set up some mails. You can't do anything in the Webinar Jam service to set these things up. They don't care. There's nowhere to actually do anything about this. So the SPF doesn't align. That means if you accidentally set up an active DMARC policy and you're using a service like Webinar Jam and you're using their mail servers, your emails will most likely end up in spam or not be delivered at all. So that's really important intelligence I'm getting here, because this makes me know that, hey, I might have that all my Semplero emails, they're checking out perfectly. But if I want to keep using Webinar Jam to send mails, I cannot turn on an active DMARC policy. So I have to start considering, well, what's like most important to me? Is that to use the Webinar Jam mail service, or is that to actually be able to enforce DMARC? I'm still considering. I'm weighing towards moving everything, all my mails over to Semplero and actually be able to enforce DMARC. I would love to turn that up. So, it also has a section with other sources, and this was kind of interesting, and this was the 1% that was neither SPF or DKIM aligned. It's from Mailgun. Mailgun is also an email provider, mass mail provider like MailChimp or all the others out there. I don't use Mailgun. So I was a bit like, why has Mailgun or someone using Mailgun tried sending an email from my domain? Maybe they mistyped something. Maybe they something else. Maybe this is like a couple of weeks back. Maybe I did something to test Mailgun, I just can't remember, but I don't think so. So now I'm keeping an open eye on, will this happen again? Because otherwise that might be someone trying to actually see if using my domain to send emails is actually working. They might have recognized, oh, well, there's a DMARC record, someone will find out, we use another domain that doesn't have a DMARC record. So this is like, we have to monitor these things. It's like part of taking responsibility for my email domain. When I look at this stuff, these reports, I actually know a bit more about what is actually going on. I'm monitoring this for a lot of customers as well because frankly, most of my, in the beginning when I started setting this up for other people, I just put their email into the postmark thing so they would get the weekly report. And they were like, what's that? Why is something red? Why is something green? Do I need to react to this? No, you don't. Just send me the emails, or we set my address in so I get the emails directly, and then I can monitor them, because ordinary people are not really into email deliverability. They want their emails to reach their target, but they don't want the hassle of reading these reports. So if you're setting this up for someone else, consider that ordinary users, end users, they don't read these reports, read them for them, and figure out, hey, I can do a much better service when I read this stuff, because now I know what's going on their email domain. So I find this super helpful. So what happens when we don't take control? Well, if you use Simply, formerly known as Uno Euro, this is what happens. In around Easter, just about when Uno Euro changed name to Simply, they decided, hey, you know, we don't want all those spammers sending out from our customers' email domains. So we'll just roll out a DMARC policy with a DMARC record with the quarantine policy on all domains if they have a valid SPF and DKIM record. Great idea, right? Nah, not so much. We started seeing on different groups and platforms, and people were reporting like everything was suddenly ending up in spam. Nobody knew why. So I started to do a bit of digging around for some of my customers, and it turned out in their DNS records was a CNAME record that pointed from _dmarc.yourdomain, that's where your DMARC record goes, it's usually a text record, it pointed to dmarc.simply.com. Then if you do a dig and you look up dmarc.simply.com, it turns out it has the quarantine policy enabled. Quarantine policy means if SPF or DKIM fails the alignment tests, put this mail in spam at the end user. So effectively, Simply was asking all their customers' mail recipients from tons of mail services that didn't align to end up in spam. I contacted their support and they were like, no, it's a great idea, it's not a problem. That's why I'm speaking openly about this company have rolled out this, because I actually discussed it with them and they couldn't see the problem. I've seen the problem. I had a customer have 15,000 emails end up in spam. That kind of hurt her email domain's reputation. It actually got her blacklisted somewhere because this was going on for a couple of weeks and something like that. So it was like 15,000 emails or email addresses, many times receiving things that went directly in spam. That was not super good. We're still doing the last cleanup bits. So what I do now, if I see someone in some of the, I'm a lot on Facebook, so that's where I get my customers. So if I see someone in some Facebook group about email stuff, and they say, well, suddenly all my emails ends up in spam. Yeah, are you using Simply? Yeah, okay, what's your domain name? Okay, it's this and that. Okay, yeah, I just checked, you have this standard Simply DMARC record. It's a huge problem. There's a lot, I don't know how big Simply is outside of Denmark, but it's like in Denmark, they used to be really cheap. They're putting their prices up a bit now, probably why they can't be called Uno Euro anymore. But there's a lot of Danish customers on that platform, and a lot of them are not getting their mails anywhere. So that's one of the cases where if people had taken, because if they had already had a DMARC record in there, Simply didn't overwrite that. They only put a DMARC record in there if it was empty. So the other case is the IT consultant case. And this was kind of interesting. I had a customer, and this was luckily not that many mails, and I haven't seen that happen to that many other people, but one of my customers, she had this consultant set up her Outlook email and get that totally verified in her DNS settings. That can be kind of a job in itself, because it's actually hard to find out what do you actually need to put in your DNS records. He had set up SPF and DKIM, and then he was a bit like, oh, now that's working, we should put in a DMARC record as well. And he put the DMARC record to quarantine. What he hadn't realized or thought about he knew this, but he hadn't thought about it, was that she was sending webinar jam that we currently have no way to get total alignment from, and she was also using Simplero. Luckily, her Simplero emails, they verified, so they got out, but her webinar jam emails, they were sent directly in spam. So we figured that out. The IT consultant got some slightly red ears, but that just emphasizes my point that even IT professionals don't necessarily know what they're doing when they're fooling around with these records. They don't think about that setting up a DMARC record, because now Outlook is in order, then we can do that, will affect all the other things. And he had set the return path to his own email address, and I'm pretty sure he had set up a filter somewhere in his inbox so that he didn't actually get all the reports. So we fixed that. We just set up a DMARC record with the none policy, and then we're monitoring things. And right now, well, as long as they want to use webinar jam, we can't actually up the DMARC policy. We could do it if we wanted to, then we would just have to send all the emails out through Simplero instead. That would also work. And as DMARC is becoming increasingly known, what we're seeing right now is that nobody is demanding that you have a DMARC record on your domain to actually receive emails from you. Or at least they are not demanding that you have an active policy. What I see will happen in the future is that maybe corporate systems, maybe government system, maybe something systems, specific company groups, whatever, will start demanding that you actually have a DMARC record with an active policy before they, or they will just, in general, quarantine your emails. What happened back in, what actually got me started on this was that back in, I think it was at some point in 2017, I was working for Simplero at the time, we suddenly saw a huge increase in emails that didn't reach their target. People kept writing back to us and say, hey, I have this customer, she just purchased this course, and when you purchase a course, usually what happens is you get 3 emails. You get the invoice, you get a login email, and you get the welcome email, whatever is set up. And maybe they got one of those. Maybe they got nothing. Maybe they got 2. Or maybe they were on a free mail series and they got email 1, and then they got email 4 and nothing else. And we were like, what is going on? And we looked in the records, and all those emails that people couldn't find anywhere, they weren't in the spam folders, they weren't anywhere, we got a delivered message back from SendGrid. They sent the email to Gmail. It was specifically Gmail was high on this, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail. We got a delivered message back from SendGrid. So SendGrid reached out to Gmail or whatever to deliver the mail, and they got about, yeah, hey, we got your mail, we have delivered it to the recipient, all is well. But the mail never turned up. Then it turned out that these big mail providers had decided to, whoops, sorry. It probably comes back in sync. Yeah. Had decided to start enforcing SPF and DKIM checks. So if you didn't have an SPF record or DKIM record set up for a sender domain, they would just randomly cut some of your emails off. They would give you the delivered message back. You couldn't see it. We couldn't see it in the back end. We sat there looking at records in SendGrid to see if we could see anything else. Nothing. But it turned out the only customers who had these problems were those who hadn't set up SPF and DKIM. So we started sending out emails to all the customers saying, hey, you need to do this. which involves going into your DNS records to put things, which resulted in a ton of support requests because people who buy services like Simplero, where they can build the entire online universe and stuff, they don't necessarily know how to edit a DNS record. So we started making some guides and helping them with that. And it worked, and it has been working for a long while. Then came along increased demand for us to actually be able to deliver on DMARC. And then we found out, hey, just having an SPF record and having a DKIM record is actually not enough. We need to set up a couple of CNAME records from my domain, from a subdomain on my domain, pointing to a subdomain on SendGrid, so that the emails being sent from SendGrid actually looks as if they're sent from my domain. When I set that up, things actually work. Because then I have gone into my DNS settings and set up and said, yeah, this domain on SendGrid actually looks like it's my domain. And that works really well. And in some services, it's just, yeah, go here, click here, and then, of course, technically, if you're not a techie person, going in and actually setting up a DNS record can be difficult, but finding out how to do it is just, here's the records, you put them in the DNS, then everything is working, and you can go all green on your DMARC reports, and you can actually start to consider upping your DMARC game. In other services, it's like, nah, yeah, when you read the guides, well, this is not necessarily, but if you really, 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 really want to do it, you write us an email, and we'll send you back the details of what you actually need to put in your DNS records. And then it still doesn't really work. I have a couple of customers using ActiveCampaign, and that's a pain. We're going to spend some time later here in August to actually figure out how to get that aligned, because right now it's just not playing along. And I haven't said I'm not an ActiveCampaign expert. They have been using other ActiveCampaign experts to set things up, and it's clearly not working. So I figure out I need to be an ActiveCampaign mail deliverability expert as well, because apparently nobody else is. So that's like, we need to do this. We need to take care of this. We need to actually take action and take responsibility for our own email domains, or someone else will do something stupid, and we will be in trouble. So, what do you do? Well, if in doubt, start by setting up a DMARC record. And I use this free tool from Postmark app. It's available at dmarc.postmarkapp.com. You just put in your domain, you put a reply to email, and then they will send you, then they will give you the DMARC record to put in. You can, as standard, it comes to policy none. And you put that in your DNS settings, and you will get this weekly report I showed earlier. It's super nice. I really like the overview. If you need more details, if you have a more complicated setup, if you need all the IPs or something like that, you need to pay for it. DMARCian also has a tool. Dennis recommended that. I haven't tried that, so I don't know how it works. And then study these reports. Have a look at them, see, is there anything, like I found the Mailgun entry in mine. That's like, what's that doing there? If that turns up again, I need to take action. That would be like the final step to me actually saying, okay, I need to sort of the last couple of places where I'm legitimately sending emails from, then I need to move everything out of Webinar Jam or start using my own SendGrid account for Webinar Jam, because I will be able to verify that. And then I will take it from there. Then I can put my policy to quarantine, and then if someone else tries to send email from my domain, it will end up in spam. And when I can see that the quarantine is actually working, I can start setting the policy to reject, and the emails will just go out the window. So another tool I'm using, it's specifically because these DMARC reports, they come once a week, they come every Monday. I played a bit around with MailChimp today to see how easy that was to verify. I couldn't really wait until Monday to get the result because that's like tomorrow, and I wanted to talk to you today about it. I use a tool called Mail Tester, mail/tester, or whatever that little one's called, .com. You can test up to like, I think it's 3 emails a day from the same IP. And otherwise, there's like a paid service, and it's not very expensive. They give you this nice report. It checks a ton of things. I can show you just in a second. And it points out where you have issues. So like, hey, maybe you're not fully authenticated. Maybe you're using stupid words, like something with sex, or something with gambling, or something like that in your email, or in your email titles that are making spam filters go bonanza on your emails. So it's a super useful tool if you have deliverability issues, or if you end up on spam list or something like that, and you'll be like, what's happening? Why is this going on? So I just had a customer, she had written something about a lottery, and we're pretty sure that's what, she suddenly got some undeliverability reports back, and when people replied to her email, it was like marked as spam and stuff, and we're pretty sure that was the term lottery, putting a red flag in some systems. So take control of this, and then when you know where your issues are, go to your mail provider and say, I want something that aligns. I want to be able to turn up my DKIM, my DMARC record, to allow for quarantine or reject policy, and I want to actually be able to still send my email through you. Because if nobody demands this, then it won't happen. Some of the bigger companies, they're like, don't care. Most of our customers doesn't care, so why should we try to implement this? And it means some server hygiene and stuff like that, because they need to know actually where they're sending your emails from, and that's probably a hassle. So why work on this? But please start demanding it out there. That would really move something. And then I'm just going to show you real quick one of these mail tester. If I could find my mouse, here goes. So this is the report I get from Mail Tester, and you can see it's a 10 out of 10. That's super good, but still there's this little orange point down here. So if I just scroll down a bit, you can get that up on the screen. This is from a test mail sent from MailChimp earlier today, before I set up my verification. Actually with MailChimp it was rather simple, and I'm looking forward to getting my postmark report for that domain tomorrow, because I'm a bit like, was it that easy? Because I should only set up 2 CNAME records, and they took care of everything. Then they take care of the DKIM record and everything. And that's actually quite cool, because if your DMARC key is compromised and you need to change it, then if you have it, if they're taking care of it, if it's in their DNS, they can just swap it. If it's written directly in your DNS, then they need to contact you and say, hey, your key is compromised, we need to change this. So that's like, there's a latency there. But what happens here is, I'm not fully authenticated. So I scroll down here, I can see, well, your domains are not aligned. We can't check DMARC. And then I can see here that there's something. There is the DMARC record, but since the domains are not aligning, something is sent from some mail chimp servers and something is sent from mailgeek.dk. It doesn't align. Then I set up the 2 records. We got this one. Now it works. My signatures are valid. It's still all being sent from MailChimp, but now it actually works. So this is quite a nice little tool. And it's also something I can give my customers this as a tool. because they can understand green check mark, 10 out of 10 score. If they get a 9.5 out of 10, okay, we need to look at something. It's super easy to use. And then it might be missing some details and stuff, but that's not really that important. So, any questions? That's why I use I haven't found one I can use locally. I just found the Postmark one, and it does the job really, really well. So that's what I'm doing currently. That definitely is tools out there, but I like the Postmark one. Yeah. And you can also use DMA, they have a tool as well. And it's, if you only have like one domain, it's free, and if you're a bigger business, they have some paid accounts as well. And then they do all the heavy lifting and interpreting and aggregating data, and you don't need to do that. I like that. Yeah, that's like my next place to experiment. Right now I'm using tilde all. I just kind of did that because when I set the records for my Stenner.dk, it's on one.com, and they said, do this. And that's what I did. And then I became wiser, and like tilde all is like a soft fail if it doesn't fail, and just the slash all is a hard fail. I'm going to start experimenting with what that actually does. If that will do, next time I know I'm doing a webinar, then I will change it. And then I will see, will this actually, what will that do to these emails? Not when I'm doing a super important webinar. But if I'm doing some testing or stuff, I will see, does this actually, because I think that might actually be why the webinar game mails are still getting there. They're reaching their targets. The deliverability rate is not bad. But there might be a difference between the soft fail and the hard fail. When I did a bit of a studying about this, because Dennis mentioned that, hey, you have to do the hard fail. And when I read up on it on different sites, they're a bit like, apparently the interpretation of the soft fail option is different from whoever to whoever. So it's a bit like, some say just go with the soft fail, and some say go with the hard fail. But I'm going to start experimenting on that. So, good question. Thank you.